Hello and welcome to another video. In this video we're going to be looking at 6 ways to get music onto a mini disc. First up, we're going to use a method which is not ideal, but it is going to work for everything you've got that's got a headphone socket in it. So for example, this cassette Walkman, this mobile phone, if you're lucky enough to have a mobile phone with a headphone socket, it's going to work for anything with a headphone socket. It's not ideal, but if that's the only way to get the music out of your music device, then that's the way we're going to do it. So you're going to need a cable that's got a 3.5mm or 1/8 inch jack plug on both ends. Okay, this one happens to be a short one, which is quite handy. You're going to plug this into the headphones output. And then on your mini disc recorder, you're going to ignore the one that says mic. That you should never need to do that unless you're maybe at a gig and you want to record from a microphone. So what we're going to use the line in. In this case it's line in and optical, it's a dual input, but we're going to use the line in. Now line in and headphones are not the same. Line in has a different impedance and a different voltage to headphones, but it's going to work for the purpose of what we're going to do. So what you're going to need to do is test it. You need to get the output of this to match a good input on this. So what I would do is start with your volume controller about 2/3 to 3/4, that's full, about 2/3 to 3/4 of maximum, and you're going to do a test recording. So I'll press play on this or on your phone or whatever it is, and I'm going to slide the record button across on this and immediately press the pause button. That should come to life in a second. There we go. Now it's registered as line in and it's on pause, and these buttons on here or on your remote are the record level. So it's going to be difficult for me to show you this perhaps. So I'm going to turn up the record level. If I turn it all the way up, depending on the music, that line will go up further. If I turn it all the way down, the line will go down. So if you turn it up too much, you're going to get some distortion perhaps from the player. I think I've got to the end of the track on that one. But you're going to need to do a little bit of experimenting, and once you've got it right on one of your cassettes or whatever it is you're playing with, then that device, that's the level of output you need on the volume for that. And then you're going to queue up your music or whatever it is you're recording on here. Let's say we got to the right place, and you're going to put this into pause record. So this is, sorry, record pause, by doing that and pressing the pause button. And it's 1 second into the track, and there's no way really for this to detect when the music starts and stops on this. So you're going to get rid of with your play button, and you're going to press pause, and then that starts on there. And now you're recording from this or your phone or whatever's got a headphone socket out into your mini disc here. Now you might have noticed it went straight to track 2. Track 1 is about 1 second long and blank, and we'll be able to delete that later from our mini disc. So this time we're going to show you a much better option. This is a line out cable, and it's got this type of plug on it on one end and this type on another end. You might find these line out ones with this type of connector on both ends, or indeed with this type of connector on both ends as well. And this is one of the best methods for getting music onto a mini disc in my opinion. It's going to give you an excellent quality of sound and no messing around with record and input and output levels. So for example, this Sony Diskman, not only has it got a headphone socket on it, but it's quite a good one because it's got a line out socket on it. I don't know whether you can see that, line out. And this cassette deck has line out sockets on the back, white and red match up with these cables here. So whether you've got this type of cable or the 3.5mm, looks like a stereo headphone cable, that's going to work for this method. Coincidentally, my new Sound Burger and my older red one also has a line out socket on it as well. Okay, so in this case we're going to connect our Discman or whatever it is that we've got a line out socket on with the correct cable. Again, this is quite a short cable, and we're going to put this in again, the line in cable here. The beauty of line in is you don't need to mess around with any volumes. You just go ahead and record. It's going to output the correct volume from your source for most things. It's going to be the correct volume coming out of the line out of your Discman or whatever it is, and it's going to be the correct volume going line in to your mini disc recorder. So with no messing around with output levels or input levels, you're just going to put your recorder into record mode, and then you're going to press play on whichever player you're using for the line in to line out, and that's it. It's going to start recording. Once it's finished, your mini disc player might even notice that it's a blank track and stop it or pause it automatically, but for the purposes of this, we'll assume we're finished. That's it. So it's nice and simple. Anything with line out is going to give you a really good quality recording using the line in socket on your mini disc player. So method number 3 is probably the one I've used most, which is optical. So this is the back of a computer tower, and it has a SPDIF out, or what we commonly call optical out. Now when this is switched on, this actually glows red. So optical out is a digital signal sent via essentially fibre optic cable. Right, so the cable that goes into that slot in the back of the PC tower, and you can get it on some adapter cards, so you can get a USB to optical out for laptops and stuff like that. So that's the cable, and this tiny little bit here is where the light goes in. And on some cables you've got the same socket on both, the same plug on both, but that's no use for what we want. We need to use a portable mini disc recorder, and that is the cable we need for that. So this one goes in the back of the PC, and this one goes into the mini disc player. Right, so this is about the millionth take for this demonstration. So I've plugged this into the mains because the battery's flat, so that's the mains cable. There's a blank disc in there, and the cable is that cable is plugged into the back of the computer, and this is the other end. So the cable with the round end on one side is called a TOSLink cable, TOSLINK, and that's because I think Toshiba invented it. And it's exactly designed for, I think, portable devices like this. Now that's going to go in to this socket here, which is the optical and line in socket. So if you're using this for line in, that's an analog signal and it goes into that socket. If you're using this with the red light on the end, that's digital optical signal, and that socket will detect the difference between the two, and it will recognize that this is a digital optical signal. So the other thing we're going to do to demonstrate this is plug in my headphones. Now the only thing I can think of playing is some music off the computer, and it is subject to copyright, so I won't be able to play more than a few seconds, but it will still be able to demonstrate what's going on. So let me get that set up and then we'll do the demonstration. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put this into record here using the slider at the bottom, and it automatically realizes that it's a digital signal. You saw it pop up as digital on the display, but now it's automatically put it into pause because it knows, it can tell that there's no signal, no music or sound coming through the cable. So it recognizes it's a digital signal because the red light is always on, but it recognizes there's no actual data coming through, so it's put it into pause. So as soon as I use this mouse here to press play to play the music, then it should start recording, and then I'll have to stop it again because it's obviously copyrighted music. So let's give that a go. So that music is now coming through the computer, in through the TOSLink cable, the optical cable, and is being recorded onto the disc. Now I'll pause it. Now that I've paused it, this player ran on for a few seconds, but recognised that there was a few split seconds of no sound, and it's automatically paused it again. And when I press play, it's going to give me a new track. So the track number is track 2 now, and it'll count on. Now, another benefit of this optical way of recording is once it gets to the end of the track that is being played, you don't need to pause it. You let it play through all the tracks, all the music you're putting onto your mini disc, and it will automatically add the track marks to the disc. doesn't add any track data, but it will automatically add the track marks to the disc. So if you're recording a CD in this method, then it's going to go all the way through the CD, and it's going to put all the pauses between the tracks on the CD are going to be detected, and it's going to give it a new track. So you'll end up with the same amount of tracks on your mini disc as you had on your CD. And this is the method I used to record most of my music in the early days, coming out of this computer and going into this actual mini disc player. That was a really difficult demonstration to set up, but I hope you appreciated it. So let's move on to the next method. So next up we've got SonicStage, which was software introduced in the Windows XP era, and I managed to get it working on this Windows 10 computer. I wouldn't bother with it now, even on Windows 10, and I've never seen it working on Windows 11 because it's been superseded by software I'll talk about later on. But essentially you'd need a NetMD Minidisc recorder, and one of the sockets on there is an old style mini USB. So it's got USB-A, which we still use on the other end, and then this one goes into here. And then we can launch our SonicStage here. I haven't used a capture card because it would take me too long to sort it out. Ignore the message about it found untitled tracks. But then on the Minidisc player it says PC to MD. It says PC to Minidisc. So what we can do, up here we've got the music source, which will be, you can use a CD or import music files to you into SonicStage. I've got a few that are in there from a few years ago, as you can see, and we're going to transfer it to the NetMD Minidisc player. So there's the two tracks that I added earlier on with the optical cable, and now we'll be able to edit those. Let me just zoom in for a second. And they're on the player there, in the disc in the player, and it does lag a little bit, but you can then add your track name, call it whatever you want, track name A for example, and then it will actually write it onto the mini disc. And one of the main features on this, let me zoom out, is you can go to the left pane and look at your tracks from, you can just drag a whole CD onto it, but it takes a while, but I'm just going to drag a couple of these tracks over, just highlight them by clicking on them with the shift key held down, and then you can use this, send it to the so you send it from that pane to that pane, but you can also click on here, it's one of these buttons here, I haven't used it for a while, and change the mode, so SP transfer mode or LP2 if you wanted to. So I'm going to use the SP transfer mode here. So once that's set up, you just click it onto there and it writes those across. And what you see there, let's zoom in again, it is encoding those. So it encodes them from the CD format, which in this case is probably WAV, WAV, and then it turns it into the right track format, and you can see it right into the disc there. See the progress bar on the mini disc recorder. And it does take a while, so I'll speed this part up. So it does take some time. It's faster than recording in real time like you do with line in and optical in, and if you've already got the tracks on your computer then it's a better option. But if you need to burn the tracks from CD onto a SonicStage and then put them there, although it can do the two things simultaneously, so it'll be burning the CD there and then writing it straight to the mini disc there, it is only marginally quicker than doing it real time. So now we've got on our mini disc recorder and the mini disc, we've got all our tracks. Let's say we didn't want this track number 2 here. You can right click on it and delete it. Yes, I'm sure I want to delete it. Then it does the edit there. It does lag a little bit, but there it's gone. And then once you finish with this, don't think you have to press stop. Oh yeah, you have to press stop, then it gives you a table of contents edit. Then you can pull the cable out, and when you play your disc, you've got your track name 1, I think that is. There we go. And then the other tracks you've got from SonicStage. So that's the original. In fact, there was one before SonicStage that they introduced, and I can't remember what it's called, but SonicStage was by far the most used piece of software written by Sony for doing just this sort of thing, getting your tracks onto a mini disc. So that's it, but I wouldn't use this method. I'm going to come on to a better method next. Okay, moving on, we've now got a different mini disc player and a different computer, and this is how the progression of my mini disc burning has progressed over the years. This one is the brilliant Web Minidisc Pro. Here's a note from me doing the editing. Since shooting this part, the website for Web Minidisc Pro has changed. So in case it changes again, I won't quote it on the screen, but you can look for it in the description box below. So back to the video. You need to be using Chrome or Edge browsers or Chromium. Now you do have to manage to get the drivers on for your mini disc player. And yet again, you connect up your mini disc player, or recorder should I say, with an old-fashioned mini USB cable. Then once you've done that, it will say PC to MD again on the display, and you simply click connect there, and you select your NetMD Walkman here and click on connect. So here's the tracks that we had on the mini disc when we were using SonicStage a few moments ago in the earlier section. And once again on here you can take your track name and you can edit it by double clicking it. So we'll rename this and then straight away it's already renamed it on the mini disc, although you can't see it. And then I think you can move these around, so you can put that one down the bottom if you want to. And you can use this plus button down here to add tracks from your computer. Right, so I have to be careful I don't show you anything personal on my computer. But here's some music which I've burned at the ripped at the best possible quality. We just put a few Depeche Mode tracks on there. You can drag whole folders on it, or just drag a couple of tracks over just to illustrate that. So you can like pick, let's say we want to pick track 1, track 4 and track 6, holding down the control key on the keyboard as you click each one. You can see they're all listed there now, and then if we open those, it will ask us what format we want to use. So I'm going to put those on. You can have multiple formats on the same mini disc, but I'm just going to use those as standard play ones. And the track title is just going to be the file name. It also tells us how much space is left on the disc. So I'll click OK on that. And now it's converting that from the waveform, which is on my computer, and then also converting it into the format that is used on the mini disc. So you can see the disc symbol there is spinning round, and it's writing those now as it's doing the conversion for each track. It's done the conversion there, and it's putting it in the right A-track format and then writing it to the mini disc itself. So let's let that get on with it, and I'll be back once that's finished. Right, so that's all of those tracks now on our mini disc. But what I want is these tracks, these ones I've just added, I want those right at the top of the list. So I can just move them up there, and then we move this one up there. Oh, that's a frozen one, I think. Move this one up there. And this one up there. This is a great piece of software. It's web-based. It only works on Chrome, Chrome-based browsers, which, as I said, is Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, or Chromium. It won't work on Firefox or anything or any other browsers. So that's it. I think this is probably my favourite way of getting the data onto my mini disc, and this is the Web Minidisc Pro from Stefano Brilli. So this is going to be the final one for this video. I know there are other methods to get music onto a mini disc, but these are the 6 I wanted to deal with today. This one is NetMD Wizard. It's a piece of software that runs on Windows, and it's designed to put whole CDs onto your mini disc. So for this one I'm using a different computer, but I'm still using the same MZ N710 as I was using before. And the first thing I've got to do is put the CD in. Once you put the CD in, you click on this button here, which is for reload the CD. And while it's doing that, I'm going to put the mini disc in as well. And they're going to reload the mini disc on this button over here. So there we go. So we've got our files that we had before on the right hand side, and we've got the whole CD on the left hand side, this Jamiroquai one here. And it tells you how much time is needed on the compact disc down at the bottom left, and how much is free on the mini disc down on the right. So this is particularly good if you want to copy a whole CD over from a CD. It encodes it and then puts it straight onto the mini disc. I'm not going to do that because we've already got some tracks on the mini disc. So what I'm going to do is just going to highlight a couple of these tracks here and show you the process. Down on the bottom here, you select whether you want it standard play or long play 2 or long play 4. And it's as simple as, once you've selected all your tracks, you just click transfer down on the bottom right here. And what it does, on the bottom left you can see it's ripping the first track of 3. And when it's finished doing that, it will encode it on this middle part, and then on the right it will be transferring it to the mini disc. I'll just do a couple of edits here and you can see each of those stages as it goes through the process. So you can see it's ripped all 3 tracks on the CD now on the left hand side, and it's transferring track 1 of 3 to the mini disc. If you were ripping the whole CD, all 11 tracks in this case, it would rip the first track from the CD and start transferring the first track to the mini disc while it ripped the second track from the CD. So it will rip all the tracks from the CD as quickly as it can and just cue them so it transfers them to the mini disc itself. So if you wanted to put a whole CD, or maybe just selected tracks from a CD onto a mini disc, this is a one-step process. You just select all the tracks you want and you click transfer and it all goes over to the mini disc. So there we go, that's all the tracks transferred using NetMD Wizard. So if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a like because it really helps the channel out. Don't forget, you can also click thanks and send me a tip, or you can go off to my Patreon page and consider subscribing to me there. So that's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much.